Welcome, welcome. So we finally got it off the road, guys. It's very exciting to be here on this first podcast episode of what we hope will be a podcast that serves procurement professionals, not only in Trinidad and Tobago and the region, but worldwide. You know, we are talking all things procurement in this Beyond the Compliance podcast. So, yeah, this is our first episode, and what we thought we would do is share a little bit about who we are, why we're here, who is Procurement Compliant Plus, what is Procurement Compliant Plus, and what we're here to do, and why we think, we have something important and to do and work to do in this space. So, yeah, if you're plugging in, welcome. We hope that you'll be deeply served. You will see that we're going to have in this podcast, we're going to be very interactive and be trying to answer your questions. And sometimes we're going to have live sessions. And yeah, I am Margaret Rose, for those who do not know, which will be most people, I think. But I'm Margaret Rose. We'll introduce ourselves. Each of us will introduce ourselves. I've been a lawyer qualified to practice throughout the Commonwealth Caribbean and called to the bar of Trinidad and Tobago since 1995. So I'm aging myself there. So that, I'll be 30 years. I'm in my 30th year called to the bar. I have specialized primarily in the last 20 years in the area of public procurement, anti-corruption and governance. And this has been my baby. I am the former co-founder and executive director of the Caribbean Procurement Institute, which had a run for over a decade. And I think we'll be sharing a little bit more about that during this podcast because, it's about who we are and why we got here. It's our history and why we feel that there is a need for a new vehicle for the vision and mission that we started since 2006. And when you analyze that, guys, in 2026, that will be 20 years ago. Okay. So yeah, that's who I am. And yeah, Vaughn, Tricia, whoever wants to go first.
Ladies first. Tricia can go first.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Rose. Thank you for inviting me to be part of Procurement Compliance. And of course, thank you for inviting me to be part of this podcast. Like Dr. Rose, I'm also a qualified attorney at law. I was called to the bar in 2005 in Trinidad and Tobago, and I have worked primarily in the public sector. So my foray into public procurement, you could say, began in 2012 when I would have started working with the Joint Select Committee at the time in terms of creating the policy that is the Procurement Act that we have today. So I would have worked on the government side, taking this act from policy to draft, to bill, to act, and then, of course, to the final stage of implementation when it was partially proclaimed in 2016. I have worked with state enterprises, and it's been an interesting time for state enterprises from last year, of course, with the full proclamation of this act. And of course, I'm excited to see what the future holds, not just for this act, but also for procurement compliance and its role in this new landscape. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Also, one thing, which you also are a qualified procurement professional.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I convert. And we love converts.
It's not a convert, it's about bridging. It's about bridging the two sets of expertise, bringing them together, not converting one to the other, but go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, hi, everyone. I'm Vaughn Rondon, procurement professional. Been in this thing called public sector procurement for over 25 plus years. Just as Margaret indicated, bridging that gap. Really, the lawyers and the procurement professionals have always been in this love-hate relationship, which we will discuss further. But definitely, coming into this heavily regulated environment, that merge is needed. I've done the gambit of a lot of the state enterprise, possibly anything ending with TT. I've been, the procurement professional for, and I've, developed this wide range of experiences. I've been in the vineyard of public sector procurement, working hard, and really and truly, I'm excited about this new space that we're in. But I'm also, I've recognized how scary the current landscape is, that is void of the kind of advice that is needed from seasoned procurement professionals and from lawyers who interpret the legislation for the success of the public body, as opposed to interpreting just to see what we can't do. So definitely what we provide in this whole beyond compliance is not only how can you become compliant with the Act, but also how can you deliver within your procurement entity the kind of values that we want. So definitely I'm excited to be here, and I do hope that I could guide some of the named procurement officers who have been thrown into the deep end of the sea, with their foot gash and their shark circling.
Yeah, because we are in a very interesting space right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of the most modern public procurement reforms worldwide, right? Because we're a year and a half in to a new procurement law. And I have been, what I think about the law is no secret. Yes, we have made progress, and it is a step forward, and there are challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And if, as Vaughn was saying, we want to achieve best value, if we want to deliver the outcomes for organizations, it's about how do we help public sector bodies and public sector suppliers to navigate some of the challenges that compliance with this new law throws up. One of them being, and each of us have been advising. Tricia's in-house in public sector organizations. Vaughn has been advising on the outside, and so have I. I've been advising public sector bodies right now. And one of the things is that, we have a Section 30 in the Act that says that all procuring entities must comply with the guidelines, not only with the Act and the regulations, but also the guidelines and handbooks. And as we all know, the OPR, which, let's take a moment to commend our Office of Procurement Regulation, because it is impressive the amount of work and the amount of resources they have deployed to rolling out this Act, right? And implementing the Act. It is certainly a huge challenge to do it in the environment of non-compliance that kind of existed prior. So, they're doing human service.
Mm-hmm.
And they also created, over 60 handbooks and guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
which they then broke down and simplified to 30. And Vaughn, I know we particularly, we like the house that they've created, the procurement house, and you could click and get all of each of the guidelines in different places, which I think that was quite, ingenious. I quite like that. However, what it does, because of Section 30, it means that all of those guidelines actually now have the status of law, right? And that is slightly challenging, and has been, from the feedback we're getting from our clients, has been a bit challenging. How does one navigate all of these guidelines? Yes, the Act and the regulations will take precedence to the guidelines, but where there is no inconsistency, those guidelines are law.
Yeah.
Those handbooks, comprehensive handbook, basic handbook, handbook on this, handbook on all of it, is now law, and it is challenging. We will get into that, I guess, in future podcasts, where we're going to pull out, specific issues that public sector bodies have been having, but yeah, this environment, particularly in Trinidad and Tobago, is a challenging one for public sector bodies,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not just the change to a new system, it's a system that has so many moving parts.
Yeah.
So you're learning as you go along, which is not, it can't be ideal when there are sanctions applied in a situation like that.
Learning and taking licks to it, that's important. You know,
Vaughn, you
as
took it ready.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah. One of the well, I always say one of the first, but the first for a challenge proceeding,
you were
and
the first hearing, the first
yeah,
challenge
first
proceedings that
hearing,
went to hearing.
and it
Yeah.
indeed was an eye opener because I thought I could have gone in as a procurement professional, and answer the questions. However, in hindsight, I really needed that legal support because it's a format, it's a process, it's forms, it's not.
Now, guys, you see what Vaughn's saying right there? You see what Vaughn's saying right there? That is a big shift in
Yeah.
this man's mindset. Okay. Because we have always had this tension. And I think within organizations, Tricia, you back me up if I'm within,
Yeah.
there is tension between the lawyers and the
Yes.
procurement professionals.
Yeah.
Procurement professionals feel they know everything, right?
Yes.
And lawyers also feel they know everything. You know,
Yes.
we know about the law and procurement, but yeah, but you don't know procurement. And procurement
Yeah.
people say, you don't know law. But really and truly, public procurement is now the intersection. It's a
Of the
hybrid.
books. Yeah.
It's a duality that has been created. It's now
Yeah.
public procurement law.
So,
Yeah.
so we could actually have a 3-hour podcast session on how do we get along, with in the
Being
organization.
good neighbors
Yes.
on procurement.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure. And that's what I appreciate about the both you, Vaughn, and Tricia. The
Mhm.
fact that both of you have done the work to develop the other specialization.
Yeah.
Right. So Tricia has gone and gotten the procurement specialization. Vaughn has gone and masters in public procurement law inside of that right now. So I mean, it is what I mean, it's a great that you all have been able to do that. And this is one of the things we want to do in Procurement Compliance Plus. That's one of our unique approaches, is that we are bridging the gap between law and public procurement,
Procurement.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one thing, Dr. Rose, you may have mentioned it in your articles, but the thing about procurement is that procurement and law are they are services. So basically, they are both there to advise. The actual thing is what has been done, which is procurement is there to procure and law is there to ensure compliance. But there's the actual work, the
Yeah.
work of procuring the good, the service, whatever it is that has to be done, not only to compliance, but to need.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the question of what it is you're procuring and what you're advising on, sometimes that gets lost in person's understanding of this whole landscape. And that is really the most important part of the landscape, what you are there to do, which is
Yeah.
buy or
Buy
advise.
effectively and buy better also.
Yes.
It's important.
Yeah, because both of you all are touching on exactly what public procurement is. Public procurement, and it's something that I say repeatedly, is that bridge between government policy, like what government wants to do in particular areas, whether it's crime, healthcare, education, and actually achieving the outcomes that are required by the policy, what they want to do. You need to procure your inputs, right?
Yeah.
And so if that bridge is broken, or if that bridge is not effective and crumbling, then we are not going to achieve the outcomes for the benefit of the people. And that's why getting this bridge right, ensuring that this bridge is built right, is so critical and so important. And it is why we are here. Right? That's the raison d'etre for Procurement Compliance Plus. And perhaps maybe we could step into, a little bit of how we got here, and why we think that there is need for a vehicle such as Procurement Compliance Plus to help and assist in leveraging public procurement for a better future. why did we get here? And there are lots of, well, not lots, but I know for example, in Trinidad and Tobago right now, after the Act, we have several organizations that are now doing training in public procurement. And so the question is, well, what makes procurement compliance different? And why is there a need for procurement compliance in this space? And I think the way we get to that answer, we first have to go to our history. Our history. And you see, and it's interesting because to me, that's also something that I bring especially into the space, the history and the underpinning, the legal histories, and the philosophical underpinning of public procurement law. What is the purpose of it? Why are we here? And so maybe, as we had planned, guys, let's tell the story through a video that was created in 2016, 2017 to celebrate 10 years of the Caribbean Procurement Institute's work in this space. So let's do that now, and then we will come back and talk about who PC Plus is going forward, because this is our history. Okay, enough.
It's about power. It's about purchasing power. It's about understanding the power that comes with a dollar.
The recent UDCOT fiasco and the findings and recommendations of the OFF report into the construction sector have exposed numerous flaws in the procurement process in this country.
Really and truly, there was no overarching public procurement law statute that governed the process by which government spent money.
It's also about sustainability and the social impact of purchasing.
You see, every single time we make a purchase, we're not only buying the item. Every item has a backstory, and it comes with a human, social, and environmental footprint, a cost.
It's understanding how procurement has moved out of the back rooms and is now real time. And it's about bringing all of this, a scientific methodology, to the way we use that dollar. And understanding the use of a dollar has got to be not only profitable, but sustainable.
The Caribbean Procurement Institute is a private sector initiative that actually came into being on the landscape of Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago 18 months ago in November 2006.
I talked to a few professionals who I knew felt the same way. Helen Drayton, Woodrow Whiteley from Jamaica, and we came together with a shared vision for serving policymakers, practitioners, and professionals who engage in the function of procurement.
We saw the gap, the need to help the momentum in what is one of the most critical aspects of national life, both from the public and the private sector perspectives.
And during 2007, what we did is we spent that year researching, developing a network of public procurement policy and law and finance experts, economics experts all over the world. We were able to spend time working on our curricula and exactly what we wanted to teach and share and contribute to. And we had our first conference in early 2008.
Our desire, our goal is to promote excellent standards in procurement in the interest of development of our region.
The objectives were threefold. Firstly, we wanted to enlighten, raise awareness about the strategic power of the procurement function. The second objective was we wanted to raise the capacity of professionals and policymakers to engage with this function. We wanted our policymakers to understand the relationship between the rules that we create here and our interface in the global marketplace. And the third objective was to create a network of procurement professionals who could share best practices and support each other as we tried to transform the way public sector professionals interacted in the function of procurement. It was about compliance. We started from a place of anti-corruption.
And I say, however good your procurement law is, that is not going to be enough to stop corruption. It can support anti-corruption efforts, but it's only the tip of the iceberg, if you like. It's got to be supported by things like, for example, good training programs. And this is why an initiative like this institute and association is so welcome.
CPI is a dynamic organization that focuses on training and empowering public sector procurement professionals by having many seminars, workshops, conferences.
We established a network of leading public procurement and finance and economic thinkers from all over the world and legal thinkers. We engaged in some pieces of research based on our local environment, and then we created programs that were customized for our local regulatory context.
I think CPI has been able to bridge a lot of the professionals out there, so that when CPI says, I am coming out here to give you some of what I have to offer, they are offering not only to the legal profession, they are offering also to the practitioners in procurement. They are offering to the management.
One of the differences about the Caribbean Procurement Institute from any other procurement training organization, not only in Trinidad and Tobago or the Caribbean, but in the world, is our approach to procurement education. We recognized, but the procurement training only being given to purchasing, supply, and logistics officers at a particular level in an organization is not going to contribute to making the public procurement function more effective in organizations, because they are lawyers, they are accountants, they are architects, they are engineers, they are board members, all of these persons engaged in the function of procurement. And what the Caribbean Procurement Institute did is that we created programs that were specialized for lawyers, for the accountants, for the auditors, for board members, relating to exactly how they would have to interface with the function. We created programs that brought the procurement expertise, into the room.
And a lot of learning and growth takes place there for us. Me being a procurement professional, it allows me to interact with the different organizations and learn about the different procurement policies and procedures. And now that we have this act in place, it helps us also combine our resources and knowledge and to put things together so that we could achieve something that is for organization to grow forward.
Well, I think that CPI offers a very unique product in that in the public arena, training and development and having information that's specific to the public sector seems to be sort of scarce.
Program was always well received, and CPI set a standard for the delivery of training in Trinidad and Tobago.
Over the 10 years, we developed relationships with the University of Rome Tor Vergata, and we developed a relationship with the University of York in Canada, the Osgoode Hall Law School. We partnered with them, and for several years, we put on the Osgoode Hall Law School certificate program, the 5-day certificate program, and certified many lawyers in public procurement law and practice. One of the first things we did in 2008, the Caribbean Procurement Institute sponsored the establishment of the Caribbean Association of Procurement Professionals, which is a not-for-profit, is our sister organization.
And what we actually have is a membership wide across of the various professions, and they come together to really and truly help define procurement policies and procedures. What we try to do is to use the membership as a way, to really drive policy going upwards. So while we await on some sort of policy or some sort of reform, we're saying amongst the membership, we can start to really create some of the ways in which we anticipate to do procurement within our sector, within our society.
We also were able to form some really useful international linkages, productive international linkages, and one of them was with the Procurement and Supply Chain Management Institute of Asia. And we were able to partner with them to create customized programming in Trinidad and Tobago and throughout the region. Another achievement of the Caribbean Procurement Institute is the establishment of the not-for-profit Disclosure Today.
Disclosure Today was created by CPI because we saw a need to support public sector officials. When they saw that there were improprieties occurring around them, they needed the support to stand up and stop it.
It came out of a vision to create a platform using civic technology, the internet and everything else out there,
where CPI secured software designers to design an online platform which was very advanced for Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
To be able to allow individuals to be able to use the freedom of information legislation, which we have in Trinidad and Tobago, to make requests to government offices, government agencies to get information using the Freedom of Information Act, but also to create an environment where we have lawyers who could work within the public interest to give these individuals free legal advice that they may require in doing their requests, and probably also free legal representation if we need to go to court to represent them to try to get the information from government if the request is denied.
Disclosure Today has been involved in many of the most recent release of information that has shown impropriety in organizations. So that's why I would say that Disclosure Today is a quiet but very influential force within society. It's not loud, it's not in everyone's face, but it's there.
And in 2014, it was recognized internationally as one of the most innovative anti-corruption projects in the world. And so we won the Global Social Entrepreneurship Award for that, which was issued by Transparency International.
Bear with me. I want you to look around the room that we're in right now, or think of your home, your school, your office, and look at the items in the room. Look at the chairs, the carpets, the cushions, the walls. Every single item did not just magically appear. It was bought. And what that means is someone decided to exchange their money for that item. Someone decided that that item had value.
The need for high quality training that is relevant and well delivered in Trinidad and Tobago still exists.
Procurement in itself changes, our environment changes, what society needs constantly changes. We cannot be stagnant and follow one policy and one rule all the time.
A lot of the procurement practitioners now should be seeking certification.
An organization is created and they create one set of rules and they apply that rules for 50 years or more. And here the Caribbean Procurement Institute was saying no. The global market is changing and we have to be aware of how our needs in our country can be protected.
And in 2017, CPI remains, even as it transforms itself and grows into something slightly different, it remains extremely relevant. And from the point of view of a minister and seeing how we've had challenges in terms of getting the appropriate training content and training provider, I think CPI is well positioned for the future.
The Procurement Innovation and Leadership Lab, this is the next iteration for the Caribbean Procurement Institute.
The Procurement Innovation Lab, it's really there to promote new ways of procuring, for example, sustainable procurement, where there's a focus more on social impact, human impact, and environmental impact.
What we want to do now and what we are doing through the Procurement Innovation and Leadership Lab is really helping governments understand how they can use this function to stimulate innovation in their country, to get solutions to challenges using their public procurement function, and how they can measure the social value of every dollar that they spend.
I think that it would bring value to the country first and to the organization, and most importantly to the participants, Trinidad has a very small population. We are accustomed interacting with, the outside world, and in particular the big cities and the experts from abroad. But we have also developed our own experts in Trinidad, some of them who are still here and some of them working around the world. And I think CPI, as it grows and it becomes PILL, brings that world-class standard, brings that experience, has access to the experts, but more importantly, more than any other, training organizations understand the culture and the needs of Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that is what it would do very well in terms of blending what is outside of Trinidad and Tobago with what we require here in this country.
CPI should be the go-to for anyone who has any questions pertaining to procurement.
I think this 10-year milestone of CPI is very significant. Knowing where CPI came from, Margaret is a non-procurement professional, being that lawyer figure, and just coming out of some of her experiences, decided to, really have this training because she saw a gap, and she has been able to, and CPI on the whole has been able to make that mark within the marketplace as the benchmark or the premier source of public sector procurement with the legal flavor.
Not many organizations last for 10 years, despite different governments, despite the economy. CPI has always been there. I feel honored to be part of an organization that is so impactful and has lasted this long.
I think you can also see the transformation over the last 10 years through the story of the Caribbean Procurement Institute and what we did as we grew every year and in successive conferences. And over the last 10 years now, when we span how many people we have trained and interfaced with, it's over 3,000 professionals throughout the Caribbean. It's been transformational, and there's no way that we are stopping. We are continuously pushing our research and our understanding of this function. Our objective is to contribute to this space at a global level.
So before you all continue, I would just like to note that I was not, of course, in any of the CPI videos that was just because I wasn't there as Dr. Rose or Vaughn, but I was there as a student in 2015. So I was one of the 3,000 people that you would have both trained across the Caribbean. I came in very late, 2015, partly because I had to save all of my money.
Are you throwing shade? Are you throwing shade?
No. But it was really a quality period of training. It was very good, a very good experience to interact and network with other procurement professionals. And it is something that I enjoyed a lot. I still have the textbook, the government procurement textbook that was part of the course. And I have CPI, the certificate, listed on my CV as part of my procurement experience, because even though I did SIPs and I finished the MSIPs this year, I didn't have anything local. At that time, CPI was the go-to for all local training.
But I would also say, but CPI was procurement law and practice.
Yes.
SIP is not.
No,
okay?
It is not. Yeah.
So just, yeah.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Yes. But also thank you for the two of you for thinking of this program that was actually really memorable and very good in quality, very good in purpose, very good in terms of leaving people with the confidence to go forward and apply what you learned. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think looking at it, brought up a lot of, emotions.
Clap. We're congratulating ourselves, guys. Okay. Yeah. Vaughn, you're saying something?
Yeah. So I think looking at the video, it brought up a lot of emotions, a lot of memories.
Yeah, me too.
Of where we were in that space of time, pre-proclamation, just giving our all, to the whole landscape, because we did recognize a big gap. And I mean, it had even transcended today. I mean, even though you have all of these people who offer some level of procurement training, our flavor of the law, of the procurement, of the experience, of the actual, we have tried this, it hasn't worked, I've gotten licks for it. This is what we bring to the table as part and parcel of the evolution of, I think, CPI into Procurement Compliance Plus. And that plus, although it's small on our logo, it's a very big thing.
Yeah.
It's a very big thing to what we bring to the table. Yeah.
I want to say a little bit though about the changing, I would say, vehicle. Watching that video, I feel emotional because of the purpose, the strategic objectives that we had, in fact, that video you were saying was pre-proclamation, but we worked pre-proclamation and after partial proclamation. We actually put on the first training program in Trinidad and Tobago on this new act in December 2016. Okay, so the journey of CPI, and then we were acquired in 2017 by a UK company in partnership with CPI to do Procurement Innovation and Leadership Lab, which was a more global consultancy in terms of servicing not only in Trinidad and Tobago in the region, but also in the UK. And for technical reasons, as we renew and, we are creating a new approach now, it is that we recognize that at the time when we started the Caribbean Procurement Institute, and which evolved into PIL, there was a lot of looking outward, bringing in some of the received wisdom and placing that received wisdom within a local context, right? One of the things that I have learned, because in 2017, I went on sabbatical and I have, spent the last, several years doing my doctoral research, focusing on the history and the underlying philosophy of public procurement law and policy. And one of the things that has been brought home to me quite in a very profound way is the very arbitrary way in which things become law, and the arbitrary way in which norms are established, arbitrary, ad hoc, not necessarily evidence-based or theoretically coherent manner. And so, I mean, it is important as we do Procurement Compliance Plus, as Vaughn says, the plus is very important because procurement compliance is the minimal standard. What we have come together and agreed should be the law is the minimal standard. But what public procurement is always exists. And what public procurement can achieve always exists, right? And what public procurement is and what it can achieve is more than what procurement law is. Procurement compliance is just a minimal standard to serve a particular purpose. And what I would love people to understand is that purpose is actually the reason for procurement law. The only reason for procurement law. It's not, oh, we must do this and we must do that. And this is the only reason for procurement law is that public sector bodies are spending public money. That's the only reason for us to have procurement law, because you're spending public money. Private sector procurement is largely unregulated. Okay, we as individuals can go and buy. And if we keep our focus on that primary and only fundamental objective of procurement, which is we're spending public money, then we can understand what the purpose of the rules are. And from that context, we can help professionals to make decisions that that have a heightened level of professionalism, can make decisions, because in the procurement process, we always have to make decisions. The law cannot stipulate every single thing, as sometimes we try to do. And so that discretion that procurement professionals have must be grounded in the fact that we are spending public money. What does public money require here? And so that speaks to value for money and all of those things that we've put into the objectives of the Act. But as we know, those objectives can oftentimes be at cross purposes with each other. In fact, your matter, was that you took decisions on the basis of value for money. That's what you did, which is one of the objectives of the Act in that particular case before the OPR. But OPR focused on
the process, the procedure,
clients with notice that you should have done notice of cancellation or something like that.
Should have negotiated with the top rank first and then go to the second.
Let's not argue on that. Let's not argue on that. But no. So PC Plus really is what is required in this moment. Not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but regionally and globally, it is what is required. Prior to this moment, we needed to help professionals and lay people and policymakers understand what public procurement is and the strategic nature of the function, and to understand what was going on the outside, to develop and to contribute to develop our own homegrown rules, right? That moment has now passed, right? Today we have many, many professionals that understand the public procurement and understand how to operate within our local context. So what is required in this moment right now, and this is one of the things, is how do we leverage technology to make the procurement function more effective? How do we build our capacity for more agile procurement so that we can be innovative and respond to the global challenges that exist in this moment, of which we are living in? So we have to recognize the entanglements that every procurement transaction has within the complex systems in which we all inhabit, right? The social, ecological, industrial systems that we inhabit. So this is an exciting, one of the other things that makes us different. I realize I'm talking a lot, guys.
No, that's all right. It has the passion coming out. The passion for the program.
One of the things that makes us, different, I think, is that CPI did kind of set the standard in the past for training programs around procurement law and practice. And that's okay. I think it's important to have good training programs that certify people in terms of what procurement is and what are the different methodologies and that sort of thing. But how can this law now sit within existing governance frameworks within public sector organizations? How practically can they really implement this law within their existing systems? There is a huge need we have identified for public sector organizations to build the capacity of their the institutional capacity and the capacity of individuals, the professionals in their organization, to implement it effectively. There are lots of questions being thrown up, Vaughn, that people are asking the regulator, sending emails to the regulator, please, well, how do we do this? And what does this mean? And how does this interact with this and whatnot? And what has started to happen, I think you have some feedback on that, Vaughn.
Yeah, definitely. So, from the regulatory standpoint, the regulator has a role and function. And in giving that advice, specific advice, it becomes a challenge, because if that matter now comes before the regulatory body having given the advice, from a legal standpoint, it's not something that could be done. So when they give advice, it's, go back to the act, go back to the books, follow the process. And I think in this space, especially with NPOs who don't have the experience, because a lot of the times now people are thrown into the position, it is challenging. And who? So I always say to, if not you, who? If not the OPR, who is supposed to be the be all and end all for procurement within this changing landscape, then who? And some jurisdictions have created a separate entity that is allowed to provide that level of guidance. And I think that's definitely a gap that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, which we have seen, going back to the plus in PC compliance, beyond compliance, is providing that guidance, that documented, to do the research and based and grounded in the legislation and in law. Because from where I sit, I'm always excited to understand that notwithstanding a legislation that has been put in place, you do have law. So we have the procurement law, but you all have the overarching legal requirements that, you still have to follow. So it's how do we get that advice, get that guidance, get that hand-holding, navigate through this scary landscape that we have right now. We need that support. And this is why we are here from, the beyond compliance. We are here to provide that level of guidance. I always say, more than a WhatsApp group, when we look forward to some of the products that we are offering, because as we move forward here, we have a lot of people now decide to join within our WhatsApp group and pass advice. But, is that advice legally grounded? Is it within the confines of, the procurement processes? Is it adding value to the organization? Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is what PC Plus is. This is what Procurement Compliance Plus, what we've developed, which we think is what is relevant in this moment in the procurement capacity building landscape, right? We have 4 modalities for the change. Our strategic objectives remain the same as when we established the Caribbean Procurement Institute, but we've learned a lot over the last, which is almost 20 years. We've learned a lot, and we've identified the gaps that need to be filled if we want to have an effective public procurement system at an institutional level, at a national level, at a regional level, right? And the different modes in which we can support institutions and individuals who want to contribute to procurement excellence, right? And so we have first the PC Plus Academy, and that replaces our institute. And what makes this academy different? Of course, certification is important, but just as we are beyond compliance, we are beyond certification, right? We include and go beyond certification. Right. It really is about implemented, done with you and done for you services that we are doing through the Procurement Compliance Plus. So what do I mean by that? We have created a new modality for delivery of our training and capacity building, our capacity building interventions, and they're called labs. And what do we do in labs? Right? We experiment. We have a theoretical framework, and you test your theories practically within the organizations, right? And so this is grounded in theory, our approach to the delivery of procurement education, where we will be it will be very solution oriented and very pain point oriented in our academy. So it's not about what is the procurement law, or what is the law in relation to framework agreements, or what is the law in relation to the procurement disposal and advisory committee, and what are the rules and processes of that. That's not all that will happen. So what we do is we are identifying specific pain points within the system, and we are creating a lab which will start. Usually some of them we have a micro lab which you hear more about later on. We're not going to go into details on our offerings in this particular introductory video into who we are. But what I would say is we have a lab which would be live, either online and or in person, where we teach and we introduce frameworks for the particular pain point that we've identified. So, for example, we may do one relating to a pain point within the context of challenge proceedings. And so we will create with you a framework for how to address that and how to manage the risk of challenge proceedings. And then you are part of our online PC Plus Action Network. Once you come to our lab, you're part of our Action Network for 90 days, for 3 months. And in that 3-month period, we actually, our PC Plus advisors and mentors, and we have a team that's far bigger than the team that you see here. The team that you see here guides the leadership and management of the Procurement Compliance Plus firm. But we have a team of PC Plus mentors and advisors who will be holding your hands for the 90 days to implement those frameworks in your system. It's not just, oh, this is a framework, but then when you go back to your organization, how do you get that approved by the board? How do you get the PDAC members to understand this framework? How do you, get the stakeholders in your organization and the approvals process in the organization going to make it happen? And how do you learn? Because that's what a lab is. How do you learn from what you've implemented and iterate to suit your organization better? And so that's one of the things that we do in PC Plus Academy. Vaughn, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the PC Plus advisory.
Definitely. So on the advisory standpoint, am I stuck?
No, we're hearing you.
Oh, okay. So on the advisory standpoint, it's for us really and truly to guide the entire process. As I identified before, we have a situation where there's definitely a gap with regards to providing that guidance or that interpretation between the act and what can happen, especially during an active tender process. Interestingly, our act provides for a property advisor to be part and parcel of your process. And this is the services that we provide before, during, and even after the tender process. We analyze your RFP document. We hold your hand throughout the entire process, and all the way to the close off. It is something that is definitely needed within the current landscape, because as identified, we have a number of named procurement officers who may lack the experience with regards to navigating the public sector procurement landscape, with regards to some of the intricacies involved. The advisory service also provides that guidance to your board of directors, your PDAC committee, even your internal stakeholders, on what are the requirements for the procurement processes moving forward. How can we ensure compliance, and most importantly, how we can add value within the organization. So definitely, this is something that is, I mean, from a practitioner standpoint, definitely needed. We have the office hours, we have the 24-hour responses, we have the documentation. So our opinions are based on the legislation, and they're provided in writing. And this is where, I always say, I've been part and parcel of the WhatsApp groups, and I can't take the advice given in a WhatsApp message and take to my board of directors or take to my accounting officer, but I definitely can take an opinion that has been documented and properly researched and tied back to the legislation. And this is where our advisory services comes in.
Yeah. And Tricia, you want to talk about the Action Network?
Yes. So building from Vaughn's WhatsApp group, which is
WhatsApp.
a form of a network. It is a form of a network, but of course, WhatsApp is very informal, and sometimes the discussion is running fast and furious. It's not something that you're sitting down and thinking about and really paying attention to and scrolling back up through the messages to see what did this person do when they wanted to apply a standstill period for a machinery for a sewage plant.
Right.
You know, it's just random questions. You're wondering how someone else did it. PC Plus Action Network is going to create a network with not just procurement professionals, but also any other professional who needs to use and apply this Procurement Act. So it will include, of course, legal persons, it will include project management professionals, engineers, board members, any person who needs to know more about this act and their own roles and responsibilities going forward. And of course, it is a structured network. It will consist of discussion groups, community forum, and it will allow for the exchange and interchange of not just ideas, but also practical issues. So if you did have a question with regards to what did you do in the past, you can probably go onto our action network, look at the communities, see what they are saying and how they have interpreted and they have applied. And this is something that is key in terms of identifying best practice for this act going forward. Because like we've all said, this is a new landscape. It was only fully proclaimed last year. There's a multiplicity of regulations, guidelines, and handbooks. It is difficult to, one, identify what you have to apply sometimes, and then even more difficult to understand or even come to an understanding as to what other persons are doing in terms of how they have interpreted it. Maybe they have interpreted something in a narrower sense than you would have interpreted. So it is something that will allow us to build best practice for ourselves and allow for a safer and more compliant system going forward. And that is our PC Plus Action Network.
Yeah, we also going to have case insights in there, and there's so much that we are going to be doing in there to support professionals. It's about building community, right? Yeah. So it's beyond certification, beyond WhatsApp, and, and it's about building community, and yeah, that's pretty exciting. Our AI accelerator is really in beta stage, and there will be solutions that we are rolling out to enterprises who come on board. We already are servicing public sector enterprises in this way. And so that's basically the modalities, the ways in which we are coming into the space to support the institutions and the public sector bodies, not only in Trinidad and Tobago region. Now, so guys, we've talked a lot in this video about who we are and who we were and all this sort of guys, those of you, yeah, oh God, and who we're going to become and all this sort of thing, right? We thought it was important to have this first introductory video that kind of told that story. So we didn't just drop out of nowhere and they said, oh, we are PC Plus. Each of us, I was adding up the years when you all were talking. When you add my 30, Vaughn 25, and Tricia's 20, that's 75 years.
Yes.
No.
75 years. But is it true? Tricia, you might be dying, eh? You might be dying. No. But it's the truth, it's 75 years of combined experience of trying to understand how to procure well.
Yeah.
Right? Using public sector money. We've been putting our minds to it. And, we have come together to identify, well, what can we do based on the stuff we've figured out, and we've like, oh, this is a problem. This is a problem. What can we do to support? Right? So this is not just another training program. Becoming a part of what we're doing or coming to one of our labs, it's not just another training program. When you do that, you're joining a community of professionals that are building a network of shared practices, right? And we are sharing best practices, and we are supporting as new things arise. We are supporting you with expert advice, both in law and in procurement specializations. We also, our team is available to be outsourced to institutions that may have a named procurement officer that requires support. You know, for you to become qualified in procurement and or law, it takes years.
Yeah.
It takes years. And it's important that you should go and get your qualifications, as each of us have. And that's why it takes years. Institutions cannot wait on that right now. Institutions should support their named procurement officers to get those qualifications. But meanwhile, you know, back at Bangkok, right?
Yeah.
You know, you need to right now, when you're making decisions in terms of how to procure, figure out how to do that well and effectively. And PC Plus is here to provide that support to NPOs in your organization. So if you don't even have, either you have an underqualified named procurement officer or an under-resourced procurement department.
Or lack of experience also, because they have the qualified, but they don't have the experience working in the public sector environment, which I think is critical. Yeah.
True, that's true. Even after you go and get your qualifications, if you have not been buying, right?
Yes.
I mean, there are those gaps that Vaughn continuously tries to point out, you know, in here, right? But so that's why we're here. We thank you for tuning in. We certainly don't want to go too much longer than an hour. We really value and respect your time. If you're still here, thank you so much for plugging in. If you're still here, it shows that, you know, you are interested to see how you can get support. And we want to invite you to like and subscribe to this video. There will also be a form where you can sign up to get access to our newsletter. And our newsletter is going to announce the launch of our platform, which we are working on, and it's very exciting, where you could be one of the first early members of that platform. Like and subscribe, not because you necessarily like us, but we hope that you do, right? But like and subscribe because, one, you're probably never going to get another video where we talk so much about ourselves. We felt we had to do it, put that in the past. You know, you could always come back to this if it's of any interest at all to you. But in the videos that we are going to be doing going forward in this podcast, we are answering your questions. Like and subscribe so that you can get and click that notification bell so that you could know. We want to put on these this podcast once a week. So we will let you know what day in the week. We're thinking Monday or Friday, but once we publish this on a particular day, it will be that day every single week, and you will see it. And we want you, when you subscribe to us, you will see an avenue for you to send in your questions to us, and we are going to be answering your questions on air. We also will be doing case insights. We're going to take you into the mind of the Office of Procurement Regulator. So there have been about 30 written decisions, 30 substantive decisions with written reasons. And we are systematically going to be taking you through those, you know, one every podcast, or we may decide to do separate things on each one. Write into us. Tell us what topics you want us to discuss with you. And of course, reach out to us if you want some more implemented support. So, yeah, I don't know if Vaughn, Tricia, you want to say anything in closing?
Yeah, well, I think for me in closing, it definitely is an exciting time to be in procurement. This, you know, the frontier, you know, this regulatory framework. I think what we can bring to the table is our wealth of experience. As scary as the landscape is at this point in time, we're here to help. And this has been the ethos from since CPI all the way up. We're here to help. We're here to navigate because we definitely believe that we can improve our society by buying better. So I'm excited to share my experiences, you know, share some of the bruises that I've gotten over the years to really and truly help you guys, you know, navigate this landscape at this point in time. Yeah.
And Tricia, you have the last word. Make it powerful. Come on.
So, of course, being in the public sector, we understand that persons sometimes you find yourselves in silos. You're there by yourself, and you may not have the support that you need to come to a decision. And of course, you have so many pressures bearing on you. You have the pressure to not just perform, but perform on time, to get things done, to get them to compliance. So it may be a lot, it may be overwhelming. And with this new act that was fully proclaimed last year, you may have just been scrambling to achieve compliance with your annual schedule and your annual report and anything else that you had to do. And I think that PC Plus Beyond Compliance is a great tool that is stepping in to provide assistance that may be not only needed, but essential to move forward, to move us all beyond compliance and into a better public sphere for ourselves with these goods that we will all be using. We will all be using them because we drive on the road. We all use the same WASA. We all use the same Tiontech. I don't mean to call out anyone, but we are using these same public goods. And we ourselves, we need to go beyond compliance for ourselves.
Definitely.
So I think this is really a great tool to assist and help all of us moving forward.